Welcome to the ADHD Kids Can Thrive podcast. I'm your host, Kate Brownfield, ACC, ADHD parent coach, author, and parent. This podcast brings you trusted experts, advocates, and real-life conversations to help you better understand your child's ADHD brain, support their growth, and feel less alone along the way. To learn more about me, including group and private parent coaching, visit ADHDkidscanthrive.com. Let's get started. What does it really mean for a child to be successful? And what happens when that pressure to achieve begins to interfere with their well-being, confidence, and love of learning? Today, I'm joined by Dr. Denise Pope, a senior lecturer at the Stanford Graduate School of Education and co-founder of Challenge Success, a nonprofit organization that partners with schools and families to support student well-being, engagement, and belonging. Dr. Pope's work focuses on student voice, academic stress, school reform, and how parents and educators can create healthier, more meaningful learning environments for children and teens. She's the author of Doing School: How We Are Creating a Generation of Stressed Out, Materialistic, and Miseducated Students, and co-author of Overloaded and Underprepared: Strategies for Stronger Schools and Healthy, Successful Kids. In this conversation, we'll explore how families can rethink achievement, recognize when academic pressure has become too much, and support children, including those with ADHD, without sacrificing their mental health, connection, or sense of self. Dr. Pope, welcome to the ADHD Kids Can Thrive podcast. Here. So this is an honor to have Denise here to join us on this podcast to share her knowledge and her expertise. Denise has been advocating for all children I've known you for a couple decades.
Yep.
And what I love about your message and what you're going to share with us and give us a lot of insight around is that you advocate for all children, regardless of their if they have a neurodiverse profile, they're included in everything that you're going to be sharing with us today.
Absolutely.
So this is going to be a really good conversation. And if you also are listening and you have children who are not neurodiverse, this is going to apply to you as well. You're going to learn a lot from Denise today. So I wanted to just begin. You run a nonprofit called challengesuccess.org. And if you could just share with us, like, what is that and what is your mission with that work and what does it look like?
Yeah. So Challenge Success started actually as my lab at Stanford. So a bunch of grad students and I were working with schools to really figure out what was going on in terms of student well-being. We were seeing actually a bunch of very sad, student tragedies. We were seeing a lot of disengagement. It spawned from my book called Doing School. And actually, the head of the health center, Stanford, called me in and said, "We have the aftermath of these kids here at Stanford and across the US, and kids are just more stressed out and they seem disengaged, and we need to do something." And so that started in my lab, and we started working with schools, and then we spun out to be a nonprofit. And we're called Challenge Success because we're challenging this really narrow version of success that public and private and charter schools seem to be pushing, which is you have to get great grades, you have to take multiple subjects, you have to all go on to college, you have to get a great job, and that's what's going to make you happy, right? And so we're challenging that and saying success comes in a lot of different ways, and there's multiple paths. And what we do at Challenge Success is we center the student voice. It's all about, like, students, how are you feeling? What are you experiencing? What's working? What isn't? How can we make life better for you in schools? And really working on well-being, engagement and excitement with learning, and a feeling of belonging, safety. I am valued, I'm included. And that's what we want for every kid.
Yep. And that's what you're advocating through your books and your speaking and all of that. When was this that the lab started at Stanford to really focus on this?
So 2003 is when I
Okay.
started the lab, and then we spun out to become a nonprofit about 4 years later, and we've been going strong ever since. And we now have worked with over 700 schools across the globe, not just even in the US, helping them change policies and practices to improve what we call WEB, student well-being, that's the W, engagement is the E, belonging is the B. So that's your little mnemonic aid, one of a few that I'll hit in this podcast.
Yeah, yeah. Okay. Okay. And so then you wrote a book called Doing School, which I just love the title because it encompasses a lot. But you also have a very good understanding of what doing school means from a kid's perspective. And so, what does that mean to kids nowadays about doing school?
Yeah, it really hasn't changed so much. I mean, I wrote the book, I published the book in 2001, and unfortunately, the definition of doing school really hasn't changed, and it's still a phenomenon, which is the students would say to me, I would say to them, "Oh, you raised your hand in class. It looked like you were kind of interested in." And what did you learn? What was exciting? And they'd say, no, 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 no. We were just playing the game. We were just looking like we were interested. We were just going through the motions. This is how you do school. You just kinda either put your head down and act like a robot and just turn stuff in, and sometimes you have to cheat or copy or, now they're saying ask AI to do it, but they're not deeply engaging with the material. They're just like even if they want to, they'll say, "I don't have time. I have a physics test tomorrow. I have to read, I don't have time to read the novel." I mean, they knew I was an English teacher and they would admit this to me. They're like, "We have to just get a summary because we just either they're too overloaded or they're really confused and lost or they're kind of jaded and cynical about, how this busy work." And any of those things can lead to this phenomenon of just doing school, going through the motions, not really learning the material.
Okay, that's pretty stunning.
It's pretty sad, which is why we work so hard at Challenge Success to change policies and practices because school does not have to be that way. Learning is exciting, right? I go in and I talk to teachers and I say, when are kids most engaged? Or better yet, when were you most engaged as a learner? What is something you remember that you still remember today being engaged and excited about? What are some of the characteristics of that made it so exciting? And what comes through usually is they were interested in it. It was relevant to them. They were given, like, a real world task. They had a super engaged teacher or mentor leading them through it. Often it was project based. It wasn't like no one says, "When I did 30 workshops in math," you know?
Yeah, yeah.
30 sorry. No, wait, we should get no one says, "I did 30 worksheets in math,"
Oh, yeah.
right?
Yeah. So there's a lot of conundrums going on with children when they're coming out, but we got to get into this. But when did it? So in the 2000s, is that when school kind of changed to where it's like under high pressure to like hits where the curriculum became more about doing 30 worksheets in math,
Yeah,
reading more than a child can keep up with, like to and tests. Like, is that where's all
well,
this pressure coming from how schools are running?
if you talk to ed historians, it was sort of a perfect storm, and what happened well, at the college level, we had a decrease in population of people going to college, a decrease in population, and colleges had to do things to show that they were more competitive. And so you have, the US News and World Report rankings came out. You have this idea of, I don't know, when you were growing up, when I was growing up, you could pretty much get into University of California if you had a decent grade point average,
Yeah.
right? Now it's like craziness and everybody's applying and you need higher and higher GPAs and test scores and they don't have enough room for everybody at some of the key campuses, even though there is a spot for every kid who wants to go to college in the US. So, this sort of idea of scarcity at the college level and this idea that everybody now needed to be college educated kind of came out right around that time, it kind of 90s, late 80s and 90s. You also had more double working families. Again, these are kind of good things, right? More people going to college, double working families, women in the workplace. These are good things. But that meant you needed to have things for your children to do while you were at work. And so that we had this extracurricular boom happen. So now you didn't just have to get good grades and test scores, but you also had to be an athlete or be in the play. And parenting became a verb. And There were all sorts of books written. And so lots of people telling us what needs to happen to be successful in the United States, and lots of things happening at schools. We had a whole accountability era. We had No Child Left Behind. Some of these things were good. We want to know how many kids are able to read and how many aren't, and to do something about it. But this sort of perfect storm happened that led to schools becoming much more about tests and scores and college, and everybody's having to do things, whereas there was much more variability in the older days.
Got it. Okay, so that explains a lot. Okay, so we've gotten into this world where the demands of school and extracurricular and all these expectations for children is the demands, as you describe it, is exceeding their coping skills.
Yes. Yes.
And so we have this mental health crises and we
Yes.
have all this stuff going on now. So tell us more.
Yes. So look, was there stress before 1980? Absolutely, right? So the difference is in the kind of stressors that people were facing and in the coping strategies that people had. And to be quite honest, a lot of people just didn't make it through the gauntlet, right? So, you know, things like ADHD medication, things like, for better or for worse, things like SSRIs, right? Things like anti-anxiety medication, all of this came out to sort of help people cope, and that's one way of learning it. And the other difference between sort of then and now is we had many more community institutions, religious institutions, family institutions, extended family members living together who would kind of model positive coping skills. And what we're seeing now is, and in our own research, high levels of students are saying that they're very stressed out in school, that they're disengaged, and that only about a third of them feel like they have the coping skills to deal with that stress. So we're not saying eliminate stress. Some stress is good. It's called eustress, EUSTRESS. That's like little butterflies in your stomach before you do a podcast, maybe, right?
Yeah.
But you know you have the resources to get through it, and you'll get back to sort of stasis. But some stress, distress, right, puts you in this sort of fight or flight mode all the time. So if you feel like you don't belong, if you feel like you're being bullied, if you feel like you're completely lost in class, if you feel stupid when everyone else seems to be doing great, right? These are all characteristics that we hear of kids with ADHD, and lots of other kids who are marginalized as well, that you can't possibly learn. Your
Yeah.
brain is spending so much time working on other things to survive, right, in this sort of fight or flight mode, that you can't take in any kind of education. And so when we talk about coping skills that challenge success, we're talking about how you handle all kinds of stress: social stress, educational stress, mental health issues. And we're teaching very proactive strategies: the importance of sleep, the importance of having go-to strategies when your heart starts racing, how to ask for help, right? Boy, that's a huge thing for people to, right? So many kids are like, "Oh my gosh, I'm not gonna ask for help. No,
Yeah.
I'm gonna I wanna be under the radar here," right? So really explicitly teaching and modeling positive coping strategies is a big part of what we're doing with kids and families and schools at Challenge Success.
Yeah. Okay. And that brings up schools too have changed to be just much more academic, kind of the left brain. And we've
Yeah.
eliminated like PE and home ec, kind of these more creative classes
Yeah.
that balanced out the more logic based classes. Do you think that's affecting? Did
Yeah,
that
we're
help
actually
give us
seeing
coping skills
no,
back in
for
the
sure. The good news there is we are seeing a little bit of a backswing in a good way to what's called career and technical education classes. They're called CTE. So when I first started teaching, there was a shop class, and I had a kid actually built me a bookcase for my classroom. And I was an English teacher. He was not passing my class, and he likely had ADHD. It's unclear. He was not diagnosed at that time. This was a long time ago, right? And he said, if I write a paper about at least I sort of struck a deal with him, right? Yes, you can do this in shop and you can miss some of my class time to go do this, but in exchange, you will write a paper about the process, you'll write a paper about what you learned, you'll write a paper about why you prefer shop over English. Like, I got him to do the writing, but in ways that really worked for him and on his time schedule and with support. Could I do that with every kid? No, I had 140 kids that I was responsible for, right? So
Yeah.
people fall through the cracks. But now, then there was a period of time where they eliminated all shop. They eliminated home ec. There was a school down the street from me that eliminated any kind of art. Like you said, PE goes away, all in the sense of like more time on task equals better.
Yeah.
We know that more time on task doesn't equal better. It's what you're doing with that time, and it has to be the right fit developmentally for kids. So slowly now, we've seen some of this stuff come back. And instead of just being part of the extracurricular world, it is becoming more inside schools, and there's more and more paths, non-traditional paths for apprenticeships, for different kinds of learning. So as a parent, you can sort of advocate for this and look for schools that offer those. And it is coming to sort of a public school near you. It's just slowly happening.
Yeah. Okay. And that brings some ease or some more coping or feels more doable for some certain kids, right?
Right. I mean, look, not everybody is going to learn by reading, taking notes, taking a test, spitting it back, and moving on. That is a very antiquated way of teaching. We know that there are people who learn in many different ways. We know that the brain works in different ways, and we are teaching teachers how to teach for multiple learners and think about what makes sense and is relevant and is exciting, and just even the whole science of the brain, right? We just know so much more now that we shouldn't be teaching in the old ways.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I want to get to that more, explore that. But what are so parents who are listening,
Mhm.
maybe some educators too, how can they support their child? Like for parents being at home, that's where they have the most influence to
Yeah,
help their kids get more coping skills to help them be a good friend, be a good student,
yeah.
participate in the family. How can how could I know I can like picture parents going, okay, well, how do I help them develop
Okay,
these
so
coping skills?
there's some fundamental things that every parent, no matter what kind of kid, right, every parent should do. And it comes from the research on something called protective factors for kids. And what we did at Challenge Success is we looked at that research and we distilled it, and we have another mnemonic aid, and it's called PDF. And it
Okay.
stands for playtime, downtime, and family time. And it
Oh, I
turns
love this
out,
one.
right, it's so important that every kid have time to play. And what does play look like for a little kid versus a big kid versus a kid who's neurodiverse, right? You have to give them free choice and voice and allow them to have time every day to do something that is exciting and fun to them, whether that's going and shooting basketball hoops or hanging out with friends, or even, and this is going to make some people cringe, even being playing a video game or whatever for a little bit of time, right? Give them some time to play, and ideally use those arenas for some social time. So even those people with the headsets in who are playing video games are interacting with others, and you can use those as learning moments. Playing a sport, having a play date, whatever it is, you're modeling positive social skills, taking turns, listening to your buddy, thinking about and empathizing with someone else, right? These are all things that you can model and use as teaching moments. So that's the P. The P is playtime. The D, very, very important, is downtime. We cannot control our bodies and self regulate if we don't have proper sleep, if we don't understand what to do when our frustration or our anger starts to come out. We need to be able to breathe. We need to be able to listen to and say, I am not regulated right now. I mean, they're not going to say those words, but like, how can I get to a point where I can calm myself down, figure out what the triggers are, do something in the immediate short term to stop, and then also think about the long term. So as a parent, you want to have those sort of short term strategies, Do you want to go do your breathing? Do you want to go do your meditation? Do you want to take a run? Do you want to take a shower? Do you want to do some yoga? Whatever it is, right? And also the long-term strategies. Hey, it was really stressful for the family when this happened yesterday, when you got really frustrated and overloaded with your homework. How can we prevent this in the future? Are you doing too much after school that you don't have time to do your homework? Are you not chunking your homework appropriately? Give them some executive functioning skills where they can really, see it visually on the blackboard or on the refrigerator and check things off, right? Set timers and reminders. These are all really good strategies for all kids, but especially kids who have some EF issues, right?
Right.
And then so the P is playtime, the D is downtime, and then the F is family time. And this is something that I think people really don't think about, that we're modeling coping strategies. If we come home and say, "Oh my gosh, it was such a stressful day, pour the wine," we're modeling that that's how we're coping. Now, obviously, we're over 21 and we are allowed to do that, but what is that saying to your kid? So, I want you to talk about your good parts of your day. I want you to talk about what was frustrating and how you handle stress and frustration. Many adults of ADHD kids have ADHD themselves. And so, you're really kind of taking it on as a family to model these strategies, but also to have time together. So, what the research says is 25 minutes 5 times a week as a family. This is why most people sort of eat meals together, and I really, really advocate if you can carve out time to take some time and have a meal together or play a family game or go on a family walk or have a family conversation. You want to do this about 5 times a week, and the reason it works is because it's very hard to fall through the cracks when someone has eyes on you 5 times a week for 25 minutes and is actually paying attention to you and asking questions, and you're modeling what it's like to give and take and care about one another. And we do chores together because this is what a family does. And that person might need a lot of reminding about the chores. And again, have that checkoff list and have a timer or whatever it is. But you're modeling how they're going to then succeed when they get outside of your family unit with some of the other expectations that will be foisted upon them.
Yeah. Yeah. They have to know all of those things as well as school, right?
Yeah.
What they're
Yeah.
learning in school. That's great.
Yeah.
Okay, so Denise, what is your take on screen time and
Mm.
even, the future of AI? We are in Silicon Valley.
We are in
Uh,
Silicon Valley, and I am not a Luddite. Here's what we do know. Here's what we do know. For certain kids, and often ADHD kids are in this category, not every single one, but often, too much time on screen is actually reshaping the synapses in our brains. And there's some controversy over some of this research. Do your own research, dig in. But I will say, and I think as adults, we know this too, if we're on screens too much, we start to notice. You can look up and say, "Oh my gosh, it's been like an hour and I've
yeah,
just been like scrolling," right? Imagine a child who doesn't have a prefrontal cortex fully formed and who during adolescence is the time when literally all of this pruning and growing is happening in your brain. We don't want it to be bogged by this mindless gobbledygook chatter, right? Let alone the inappropriate things online
mhm,
that these kids are wandering into, right? Because of algorithms that they really don't control. And they're not savvy enough to realize that it is getting into their psyche. And I can tell you, even personally, there's certain videos that now keep coming up on my screen that are not good for my self-esteem, that are not good for my body image, and they keep coming up, right? And so as an adult, I have to sort of take a step back and say, whoa, that's my algorithm, and that's doing bad things to how I feel about myself and to my ability to concentrate. Imagine what that's doing to kids.
yeah. And you're a very conscious being, right? Who's
Yeah. Yeah.
a full-grown adult,
Yeah.
right? Learned a lot in life already, and
Yeah.
and your awareness is very different than a child and all of
Very much
that.
so, and even that gets hijacked, right? Because
Yeah,
kids were human. So, there's wonderful things that happen in terms of finding community online for certain marginalized populations. There's wonderful things that are happening in medical breakthroughs, particularly for, neurodiverse folks, from the ability to use AI and be online and get the word out and messaging. But you have to use it with caution, and you have to teach your children to use it with caution. We have things like no any kind of technology in the bedroom at night. It is playing with your brain whether you know it or not.
yeah,
Before bed, you need at least 45 minutes to an hour with no screens. Again, this is for all people, adults too, but particularly with someone who's having issues sleeping, particularly with someone who doesn't have strong executive function skills. We then have to be monitoring and explaining it. Don't just take it away for the sake of taking it away. Explain it. Run some tests, in your own house, right? Hey, go ahead, sleep with it in your room for a couple days, see how you feel. Now let's take it out of your room. Let's see how we feel. Let's see how we're doing, right? There's just so much you can do at home to really help with monitoring, regulating, helping them understand that they're being manipulated around screen use.
yeah. And do you have any kind of read on how AI will impact children? I mean, I've seen some things like some with larger universities. I think I saw Berkeley Law School said now student at that high level, like
Mhm.
no AI is allowed at all.
Mm. It's a tricky one. So we're working on this at Challenge Success. There's
Okay.
not, everything we do is research based, and it's just so new that there's not really good research on this. We've done some at Stanford to show that students were cheating long before AI got
Oh, yeah.
invented, and they're continuing to cheat with it. What I worry about with kids, particularly with ADHD, is it's an easy button. And when you're frustrated, you can just push the easy button and you don't realize that you're offloading the cognitive skills that we want you to be learning. So I think again, approach with caution, model, show how the right way to use it is, the wrong way to use it. I think with little kids, you want to really be careful. There's privacy issues, there's environmental issues, there's social issues that are highly controversial that they're going to bump into in school, so they're going to want to know about this. So it's too early for me to give you a research-backed sort of claim about this, but I would say approach like you would do any kind of new technology. Approach with caution, look at it together, learn about the pros and cons, obviously help them to understand the school policies. I think a lot of kids don't even know what the school policies are.
Yeah.
They get in
Yeah.
trouble, but they haven't actually internalized what they did wrong because it's unclear or it's a big cognitive load to just hold this teacher has this policy, this teacher has this policy, this teacher has this policy. I mean, most of these kids can't remember that.
Yeah.
And a lot of teachers aren't very clear on what that means. If they say don't use AI, does that mean don't use Gemini when you do a Google search? This is all Google's giving us these days. So
Yeah.
to we work with schools to be and educators listening, please make very specific policies, make them clear, post them all over your room, put them on your website, go over them again with kids and talk about the reasoning behind it as you would do with any kid. You have to explain the reasoning behind a rule or policy to help them understand it. And then have them work with you together to come up with the exact policy and consequences that should happen when we give students voice as they're setting policy together with the adults, those policies are more likely to stick.
To be followed. Okay. Good advice. Okay. So, Denise, as we wrap up, where do you think education is going based on your own advocacy and research that you're sharing, but with how AI is coming into play and this brain, we're understanding that brains are not all the same,
Yeah,
right? Kid,
which is a good thing to finally understand it. Yes, and I think technology is a part of that and helping us, right? We're putting people in MRI machines and watching them do math problems. I think I'm an optimist. I think we're in a bumpy period right now, as it would be when adopting anything new. There's gonna be bumps, there's gonna be trials and errors, I think that we're moving in a positive we're moving in a positive trajectory, even though it doesn't seem like it right now and the world seems a little bit scary or a lot scary. But I would say as a parent, you have more control than you think you do. And as an educator, there are things you can do to really strengthen student well-being and strengthen their feelings of belonging and really get them excited and motivated to learn and do things that are developmentally appropriate for all learners that will carry us through. And so, but look at our resources online. We have a ton of free resources at Challenge Success for educators and parents. I mean, literally, like, what you should do about screen time, tips for playtime, downtime, and family time for little kids, big kids, and everything in between. We have, you know, s social media policies for teachers. We're working on resources around AI. You name it, we have it.
Right.
We have a coping strategy, the science behind coping strategies and tips for teachers and tips for kids and but I think the most important thing, love the child before you, right? Love them unconditionally. Stop putting unnecessary pressure on them that they feel that they can't meet. Recognize that they are gonna find their own path to success with your help, but that it might not match the exact thing in your head,
Yeah.
that sort of straight and narrow, very traditional path that everyone seems to, you have to get A's and you have to ace the SAT and, get into Harvard. That's not the path for the majority of people in this world, nor should it be. And so love the child before you unconditionally, playtime, downtime, family time, and be optimistic. We're in an exciting time. It can feel very scary, but I think good things will emerge.
Yeah. Wise words, Denise. Thank you. And I'm going to put challengesuccess.org link in the notes and all of that so you can find Denise and all our work and research after this podcast. So thank you, Denise. This was really wonderful.
Oh, thanks for having me. It was a pleasure.
Yeah.